Bob Dylan has long been seen as the enigmatic voice of American folk, the Nobel-winning legend countless musicians aspired to collaborate with. But at age 83, he demolished that persona with a revelation no one anticipated. He disclosed a hidden roster of 7 performers he despised above all. And the identities stunned the whole music scene. Partners, confidants, even heroes. They lauded him openly, yet were banished from his circle in private. And when you learn the reasons these bonds crumbled, you'll see why they vowed never to share a stage again. Number 1. Paul McCartney, the Beatle Dylan couldn't pardon. Right at the pinnacle of Dylan's loathing list, the position no one foresaw, is Paul McCartney. Indeed, that Paul McCartney, the adored Beatle member, the figure everyone thought Dylan revered unconditionally. But far from it. And once you grasp what transpired, the response clicks into place. The rift emerged in 1987, well before rivalries made news. McCartney was in a standard chat, discussing tunes, hit formulas, and music's evolution. The interviewer offhandedly mentioned Dylan's latest efforts, the moodier, more avant-garde tracks Dylan had been grappling with. Paul chuckled gently, shrugged, and remarked, "Bob's not crafting tunes folks can recall these days." It was mild, nearly whimsical. But to Dylan, it wasn't whimsical whatsoever. It was a dagger. Folks overlooked that Dylan in the mid-1980s wasn't invincible. He was vulnerable, drained, emerging from years of inner conflict. He was reshaping his identity. And when one of the planet's top artists suggested his fresh output lacked endurance, Dylan felt demeaned. A trusted associate later remembered Dylan grumbling, "He aimed to be Lennon. He never got me." It wasn't arrogance. It was Dylan setting a limit. The consequences unfolded silently. Ideas for a joint short tour vanished abruptly. Personal gatherings were scrapped. McCartney didn't comprehend why Dylan never challenged him directly, but those in the know understood precisely what sparked the chill. Fans hoped for mending, but Dylan's inner circle insists it never occurred. Lennon was the Beatle Dylan genuinely esteemed. Edgy, sarcastic, erratic. Paul was the reverse. Refined, cautious, beloved, designed for appeal. To Dylan, that appeal seemed insincere. Number 2. Eric Clapton, the guitar virtuoso who attempted to usurp Dylan's crown. The second slot on Dylan's loathing list goes to someone he once commended, Eric Clapton. And the surprising part is this. Dylan didn't begin disliking him initially. The aversion struck swiftly, harshly, from a single incident he never overlooked. Insiders from both camps still discuss the evening it unfolded. It was late 1978, in a tight practice space in West Hollywood. A few players lingered post-rehearsal. Clapton was at ease, loosened from hours of strumming, chatting more boisterously than normal, and he unleashed a phrase that shattered the atmosphere like shattered glass. Dylan's fading his edge. Somebody's got to fill the void soon. Those present stiffened. One later noted he didn't utter it spitefully. He stated it as plain truth, and that made it harsher. Naturally, that truth hit Dylan within a day. Since in music circles, secrets don't stay buried. When Dylan learned of it, he didn't erupt. He wasn't even shocked. He merely nodded gradually, and per a bassist there, he uttered something just once. Odd how folks shift when they believe they're overtaking. That remark wasn't about Clapton's skill. It was about his drive. The repercussions were swift. A planned Dylan-Clapton session evaporated from schedules. Calls remained unreturned. Messages ignored. Clapton tried inquiring via mutual contacts, and eventually one technician told him plainly, "Whatever you voiced that night, Bob caught it." Clapton attempted reconciliation during a 1981 event. He approached Dylan backstage, arms slightly lifted, prepared to talk. Dylan spotted him, clenched his teeth, pivoted away, and headed elsewhere. Clapton appeared truly astonished, as if realizing this wasn't a mix-up. It was final. Number 3. Joan Baez, the folk sovereign who shattered Dylan's faith. What precisely drove Bob Dylan and Joan Baez from folk's ultimate pair to scarcely communicating for years? That's the mystery enthusiasts still murmur over. Because the split wasn't merely creative, it was intimate, agonizingly intimate. Their conflict began with an instant Joan viewed as innocent. Amid the turbulent mid-1960s, as Dylan reinvented himself, Joan openly declared he was abandoning those who relied on him. To outsiders, it seemed a musical critique. To Dylan, it struck like a betrayal from someone who grasped his inner fears better than most. The actual split struck during the 1965 UK trek. Joan anticipated performing alongside Dylan as usual. But upon arrival, things differed. Dylan's team denied her a spot. Dylan himself wouldn't agree to a joint set. Per one staffer, Joan challenged him in a corridor and asked, "Are you truly excluding me?" Dylan allegedly responded icily, "This isn't your performance." That wasn't mere denial, it was embarrassment. Days later, Joan grasped Dylan wasn't just shifting stylistically. He was severing her completely. She later remarked, "He owed me nothing but truthfulness." Dylan never expressed remorse, never clarified, and that wounded her more than any spotlight. But it didn't stop there. Joan made the hurt known. In chats, she discussed Dylan straying from his path, forsaking causes. She didn't assail his ability. She assailed his character. And that was the element Dylan protected more fiercely than his renown. Those near Dylan said he felt unmasked, nearly deceived, that the one aware of his weaknesses had weaponized them. He never shouted about it. He just expunged Reed from his existence. No mentions. No recognitions. Artists suggesting reunions were dismissed outright. Dylan's later comment, "She wielded my uncertainties to disgrace me." Their quiet endured over 40 years. Even their 1975 Rolling Thunder Review link-up didn't mend the scar. It merely exposed the strain. Number 4. Lou Reed, the punk bard who ridiculed Dylan's essence. Lou Reed secured the 4th position on Dylan's loathing list the instant he spoke in 1974. He targeted Dylan's core, and Dylan never absolved him. The incident occurred in an interview Reed gave promoting a Velvet Underground endeavor. The reporter inquired about Dylan's influence on lyrics. Reed didn't hesitate. He unleashed a statement that resonates today. "Dylan never signified anything to me." Then he delivered another strike. "His words are illusions and tricks." Listeners to the complete interview said Reed wasn't jesting, wasn't envious, wasn't furious. He delivered it with the same flat, detached tone he used for amp discussions and sound distortion. And that's what made the remark bite. It wasn't personal for Reed, but it turned deeply personal for Dylan. When the words reached Dylan, he didn't retaliate. He didn't respond. What he did was chillier. Per a 1970s tour associate, Dylan nodded once and stated, "Let him speak. Quiet will reply." And that quiet became the conflict. Dylan erased Reed from his realm. No public nods, no acknowledgments. Musicians trying to invoke Reed in talk said Dylan switched topics instantly, like brushing off dust. The strain quietly amplified a decade on. In the early 1990s, during a Rolling Stone chat, a journalist casually referenced Lou Reed. Dylan glanced up, grinned, and inquired, "Who?" It wasn't humor. It was total rejection, the type creators dread more than criticism. Reed learned of it later and reportedly shrugged, saying, "Of course he said that, but it troubled him more than he conceded." And here's the irony. Few fans know. Reed once confided to a pal, "Dylan was too vulnerable to accept me candidly." Dylan heard that too. Afterward, the barrier was sealed permanently. Number 5. Leonard Cohen, the versifier Dylan cherished, then detested eternally. Leonard Cohen occupies the 5th slot on Dylan's loathing list, and it's the most agonizing because this conflict didn't originate from derision or drive. It stemmed from esteem. Dylan truly adored Cohen's creations. He commended him openly, labeled him songwriting's pinnacle, and discussed Cohen with a gentleness he seldom offered anyone. And that's why the ensuing events felt like a disloyalty Dylan couldn't dismiss. The pivotal break surfaced subtly in the early 1970s. Cohen, interviewed in Paris, was queried about Dylan's early compositions. He grinned courteously, pondered briefly, and said his initial songs were somewhat juvenile compared to the bard's I esteem. He intended it scholarly, not spiteful, but context was irrelevant. That lone term, juvenile, struck Dylan like a blow. Folks near Dylan say he reread that quote multiple times, disbelieving Cohen uttered it. This wasn't an adversary or instigator. This was the songwriter Dylan truly dreaded because Cohen's verses reached depths Dylan honored. Hearing Cohen belittle his early output felt like a mentor murmuring, "You were never as strong as you believed." At a random New York encounter years later, Cohen attempted casual conversation. Dylan's demeanor stayed aloof, distant. Cohen later told a companion, "Bob communicates in enigmas." But those aware say Dylan simply didn't wish to reopen the gate. He couldn't rely on someone who'd once sliced him in a manner critics never could. Their creative competition only grew more intricate. When Cohen dropped Hallelujah, Dylan lauded it publicly, covering it in shows, but never contacting privately. When Cohen praised Dylan's simplicity of heart and lyricism, Dylan disregarded it no more. To outsiders, it seemed icy. To Dylan's knowers, it was intentional. The injury from that ancient interview remained open. So tell me, which name on Dylan's roster astonished you the greatest? And which conflict do you believe deserved resolution? Share your ideas below and don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and press the bell icon. Thanks for watching.